So we got vegetative growth, how these plants grow taller, how they can produce shoots, how they can bring in nutrients, how they can behave. The last bit I want to talk about is the specialization of flowers and angiosperms. Now, we've already dissected a flower in here. You've already pulled one apart. So you should have a basic idea of the structures. Among the angiosperms, we have three types of plants: annuals, biennials, perennials. Annuals are what you might call instant color. They produce seeds over the course of a single season. They live and die in one season. These are the super cheap plants you can buy from like Lowe's or Home Depot or wherever. Biennials don't produce seeds during their first season. They have vegetative growth their first year of life, and then are reproductively successful the second year. Thing asparagus. Different types of plants that basically it takes them a whole year to get reproductively mature, and in the second year they can produce seeds. Then they die. And then you have your perennials. Perennials typically survive for more than 2 years. They're going to come back year after year after year. They're not going to be reproductively active usually their first year. They're going to be reproductively active their second year and beyond. Trees, any of our trees, roses. If you have expensive plants, they're the ones that keep coming back. The point of these flowers, the point of a biennial, perennial, or an annual is to reproduce, and they've all maximized their reproductive capabilities. It's all about reproduction all the time. We already covered the alternation of generations. Does anybody have any questions on that? Angiosperm flowers are very, very specialized. Their whole job is to maximize reproduction. This is one of the daylilies that I actually have. Daylilies are a great example of a flower where you've got lots of coloration, not just in the visible light, but in the ultraviolet as well. It looks very different to insects. They can see different things than we can. In order to attract them to sort of rub up against the anthers up here to gather pollen. Flowers are stems that produce reproductive organs instead of leaves. So not vegetative growth, reproductive growth. The flower structure itself is usually surrounded first by what's called a sepal. These are protective leaves. They're going to open up to reveal the flower. The petals are there, like we mentioned, to attract pollinators. They provide a big bullseye for a pollinator to land on. As we mentioned, we have the male part of the flower, the female part of the flower. The male part is the stamen. It's made of two parts. The anther up here, the filament down here. So the anther is the head, the filament's the long stem. Thank you. The pollen that's produced on the anther will go on to eventually become sperm. So when you see your car covered in pollen, it's covered in premature sperm. The female part of the plant is the pistil. The pistil, so again, here you can see the stamen coming off, and the center part is the pistil. It's sort of this vase shape, and it holds the female gametophyte. The pistil has three components. It's got the stigma at the top. It's like a little hand. It grabs onto pollen as it goes by. The style, the long piece, and the ovary at the bottom. The ovary contains the egg. The style is the tube the sperm swim down. The stigma receive the pollen. Anytime you have a flower, you are going to have sexual reproduction. I want to be very, very clear on this. Sexual reproduction occurs when an egg meets a sperm. Yes? Flowers are sexually reproductive. Even if the plant pollinates itself, it's still sex. Because what I'm about to talk to you about is asexual reproduction in flowers. In plants. Flowers are always, always, always going to be sexual reproduction. Oops. Asexual reproduction, we have three distinct ways of doing this. Vegetative. This is where we're going to take a whole plant from non-reproductive tissue. You may have seen sort of old ladies, or maybe you, I don't know. If you cut a plant and you stick it in water and it grows roots, that's vegetative reproduction. A piece of bamboo. Anybody have bamboo growing in your yard? Yeah, you'll never get rid of it. Bamboo is an invasive species. The way it grows is a non-reproductive part of it, say the roots, or I don't know, a shoot goes into the ground, it will root itself. Strawberries. You guys may have seen strawberry plants. If you have, you see them growing these long runners. Those long pieces then root themselves somewhere else, and you get a whole new strawberry plant. That is non-reproductive tissue growing a clone of the original plant. You might have what's called somatic embryogenesis. This is a rare thing that happens in plants. It happens much more in the lab. But you can produce embryos, seeds, from individual body cells. If you take a leaf, you can make it grow seeds. It'd be the equivalent of taking a skin scraping off of you, throwing it on the ground, and it growing into a new person that looks exactly like you. And then finally, we have apomixis. So here you can produce seeds without fertilization. It occurs a lot in dandelions. Basically, what will happen is the egg will not undergo meiosis II. So instead of splitting and becoming a haploid, it stays diploid. You produce an egg without a second round of meiosis, so you still have a diploid. It grows up to look just like mom. And that's that. Questions or concerns?